A man in Santa Monica cured heroin addiction when medicine couldn't. Then he armed his followers and declared war on the world. By 1970, Synanon looked like a miracle. Chuck Dederich had taken street addicts, people the system had already written off, and actually got them clean. No pharmaceutical companies, no government programs, just confrontation, structure, and community. Newspapers called him a visionary. Addiction specialists studied his methods. Universities invited him to speak. I've read the early testimonials myself. The gratitude was genuine. People who'd lost everything got their lives back. The conventional story stops there. Synanon was the answer. Dederich was the hero, the end. But that narrative collapses the moment you look at what actually happened after 1972. The compound in Santa Monica didn't stay a treatment center. It became something else entirely, something Dederich himself designed, step by deliberate step. The turning point wasn't sudden. It was gradual, the way cults usually transform. First came the loyalty tests, then the isolation, then the weapons. By 1978, Synanon residents were drilling with guns, not for self-defense, for aggression. Dederich had decided that the outside world was corrupt and his community was the only pure thing left. Anyone who questioned him was an enemy. Anyone who left was a traitor. I want to be clear about what the real mechanism was here. It wasn't that Dederich suddenly went mad. He didn't wake up one morning and decide to become a tyrant. What happened was more insidious. The structure he'd built to cure addiction, the confession, the public humiliation, the total submission to the group, that same structure became the perfect apparatus for control. The Synanon Game, as they called it, was the foundation. Members sat in circles and attacked each other verbally, their weaknesses, their failures, their shame. Dederich said this purged dishonesty. What it actually did was break down individual will. You couldn't hide, you couldn't have privacy, you couldn't have a self separate from the group. Dederich positioned himself at the apex of the system. He wasn't just the founder anymore, he was the oracle. His word was law, members called him Dad. He demanded absolute obedience and called it love. When people obeyed, they were family. When they questioned, they were betraying him personally. By the mid-1970s, Synanon owned businesses. They had money, they had property in multiple states, and Dederich had declared a state of permanent war. He called it the Synanon War. The enemy wasn't just the outside world, it was anyone who'd left the compound and might talk about what was happening inside. This is where the story gets darker. In 1978, a man named Paul Morantz, an attorney who'd represented people trying to leave Synanon, found a rattlesnake in his mailbox, decapitated, a direct threat. That same year, other critics received similar messages. The violence wasn't accidental, it was organized, it was Synanon. Dederich had created what he called the Imperial Marines, a paramilitary wing tasked with protecting Synanon's interests. In practice, they were enforcers. They intimidated journalists, they harassed defectors, they carried weapons, and Dederich gave the orders. The real explanation for Synanon's transformation isn't that Dederich was a con artist from day one. That's too simple. He genuinely believed he'd discovered something revolutionary. But once you believe you found the truth, the next step is easy. Everyone who disagrees is wrong. Then they are dangerous. Then they deserve punishment. What Synanon reveals is this: the same mechanisms that heal can destroy. Confession can liberate or enslave. Community can nurture or imprison. Structure can save lives or crush them. It all depends on who holds the power and whether they're accountable to anyone at all. By 1991, the FBI had launched multiple investigations into Synanon. Dederich faced charges. Members began defecting. The compound that had seemed invincible was collapsing, but the damage was done. Hundreds of people had lost years of their lives. Families were fractured. Some never recovered from the psychological manipulation. Dederich died in 1997. Synanon officially dissolved in 1991, though the psychological echoes persisted for decades among survivors. The organization that had promised salvation had delivered trauma instead, and it did so not through obvious coercion, but through the slow erosion of individual identity. The question that haunts me, having read through case files and survivor accounts, is this: how many other organizations are operating right now using the exact same playbook? The answer is, we don't always know until it's too late. Synanon wasn't unique, it was just visible. Synanon started as genuine innovation, it became a weapon. The difference wasn't ideology, it was accountability. The moment Dederich placed himself above question, the moment dissent became disloyalty, the moment the cure became the cage, that's when it stopped being therapy and started being control. This is what separates a legitimate community from a cult. openness, transparency, the willingness to be questioned. Real healing doesn't require absolute submission. Real leaders don't need to be worshipped. And real recovery doesn't demand that you sever ties with the outside world. Synanon's story matters because it's not ancient history. The psychological mechanisms Dederich weaponized are still in use today, in corporate environments, in online communities, in movements across the political spectrum. Understanding how a genuine solution becomes a totalitarian system is the only defense we have against watching it happen again. Subscribe. Every week we examine how movements meant to save us became traps, and what we can learn from those who escaped.